States, he is made President of the United States of America under the Constitution, which is a revision of the Articles of Confederation.
Yeah, boy, that's when your head starts spinning, right?
Yeah, because so what I do is I explain to the students, look, you have to remember the date. The dates are different for the taking of these two offices. April 6, 1789 is the date when George Washington is elected President of the United States, because the process is different. The states elect the President of the United States of America. And the same thing is happening right now. The process is going on right now with the election of this new president.
So George took President of the United States, which, well, just for conversation, we'll keep saying that was the Northwest Territory places, right? 1789.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And then when did George take the President of the United States of America? Separate, different.
That was April 6, 1789.
Oh, just not too long after.
Well, no, he first takes office as President of the United States of America, April 6th, and then April 30th he takes the oath of office for President of the United States.
Oh, yeah, so like 3
These
weeks.
guys are very clever in how they set up the Constitution.
Yeah, 3 weeks later, he takes the deal for the President of the United States.
Well, it's about 2 weeks today.
Okay, yeah, something like that. So here he has two different offices: President of the United States of America, President of the United States, which are two separate entities, correct?
That's right.
Do you think the people knew what was going on here?
No, I don't think so. They didn't have cable. They didn't have they didn't have TV, radio, anything. But they had newspapers, which they got days later, in the outskirts of the country. If
the administration, this commercial entity, wanted to tax imports into this formerly Northwest Ordinance called the United States, didn't people question it if they would set up custom houses in Delaware and other places called the United States of America?
Well, I guess some of them did, but the government would give them discounts for being citizens. So the government's very clever, and they've always done this. They've always given benefits to people who would comply with voluntarily with their taxation. So if you claim to be a U.S. citizen, then you were given a discount on the imports, and then you, of course, pass the cost of the import tax to the consumer. So they start out simple and easy, and that's taxing stuff that comes into America.
But didn't the people who were in the United States of America, Delaware, question the whole idea of having any taxes? They were sovereign states, part of the Confederacy. They must have questioned that.
Well, some of them did, but that doesn't do much good to complain against the government at any time. Because what the government does is they take hold of the ship that comes in and requires the cargo to be unloaded into its warehouses, so that it can determine who's who and how much they're going to pay for bringing these products into the country.
All right. So, from the 1776 to 1789, and that the ink's barely dry on all of this, and right away they're overstepping their boundaries. What you're saying, and wanting to figure out how to tax these people who were in the Confederacy in the sovereign states that went to war to not be taxed.
That's right.
Pretty clever.
It starts all over again. Cycles.
Pretty clever, man. 20 years later, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. So, tell about the Whiskey Rebellion, because that's very interesting.
So the first thing they tax before they tax whiskey are vehicles, carriages, coaches, wagons. It's just like we have today a registration licensing tax for vehicles that started way back in 1791 with the carriage tax. Then, when that didn't produce enough money, they decided to tax the distillation of alcohol. But all their laws can only apply to the territory that they own, because the Constitution is not adopted as such, because no one takes an oath to support this Constitution. The Constitution provides for taxation, but it would only provide taxation for property and activities that are carried on in the United States, in the territory that is owned by the United States of America.
That's the key. And that's the way it is to this day. Correct?
So,
I mean, legally. Okay, but let's go back to the whiskey, because that's where the people really began to understand that they were being had.
well, they understood they were being had, but they didn't know how or why.
How it was happening.
And still today, people do not
of course,
understand.
Yeah. But you can imagine, though, 225 years ago, they had to be a little bit clearer about what was going on, wouldn't you say, Dr. Rivera?
Well, yeah, but it didn't affect them. It's not like the income tax.
Sure.
There were a few farmers had to convert their grain crop into whiskey so that they could preserve what they had harvested.
Sure.
Because the grain would spoil over winter unless they converted it to alcohol. They could be sold easily because it could be stored easily.
Right.
And it was in demand.
So with the Constitution, the pact between the United States of America, which George was, he was president of the United States, the Northwest Territory. He had a way to tax the people in the formerly the Northwest Ordinance, because they weren't states yet, right?
That's right.
And then so he could tax their whiskey and get away with it, because that's the deal that
it was their property.
It was their property.
Remember, owning property is exactly like being a landlord.
Okay, yeah.
That's what a landlord is the property owner.
United States of America owned this wilderness out there in Ohio, and they just said, okay, if you're going to make whiskey, we're going to tax you, and pretty much that's the deal, because they owned the United States of America. The 13 colonies owned this property.
They didn't own that. That's the states, remember, are sovereign and independent. The people own the land.
Oh, the people.
Government that's created by the people.
The people of the 13 colonies own the land.
Government that should be devoted to the protection of the people and their property, which it is. That's the whole idea of the Articles of Confederation, is that they're going to preserve the country by defending it.
Right.
That's their main goal.
Main goal. So George wanted to tax the people, the whiskey in the United States of America in these 13 colonies.
Well, that's where the money was.
Yeah, that's where all the people were, right?
Because there weren't any people.
Right.
There were so few people in the wilderness area, in the Northwest Territory. They would never be able to make any money there.
Right. So then what did the people in the United States of America, these original colonies, what happened when they started to have people knocking on their doors say, I want to tax your whiskey?
Well, they got very angry because
Yeah.
they didn't expect to be taxed. They fought the revolution not to be taxed. And here somebody was trying to tax them for something that they thought was their business.
Right.
A business that had nothing to do with the government.
Right.
But alcohol was traditionally taxed the making of alcohol was traditionally taxed in every government that's a monarchy. It was taxed, of course, in England.
Oh, it was kind of common.
Everything's taxed in England.
Yeah, everything's taxed in England. So what this rebellion look like? What did these people within the United States of America, the 13 colonies, what did they do when George's boys were knocking on the door saying, I want money?
Well, they would actually oppose them with their own weapons.
They fought them.
They would tar and feather them.
Hmm.
They would show them in no uncertain terms that they were not welcome in the state of Pennsylvania or the Allegheny Valley.
Sure. So
we got to the point where they were in such opposition that they were called a rebellion, and George Washington proclaimed an emergency that required the formation of the militias, the surrounding states, to be assembled so that he could lead them against this whiskey rebellion. He is reported to have gotten enough people so that he had more militia people, more militiamen formed up against the whiskey rebellion than he ever commanded in the Revolutionary War. He had 13,000 militiamen arrayed against the rebellion.
Why? How could you get 13,000 people?
These were not people. These were armed soldiers.
Where did he get those?
From the states. He proclaimed that there was an emergency because there was a rebellion, the whiskey rebellion.
But didn't these 13,000 know that George had no right to be taxing these people?
George Washington was revered as the hero of the Revolution. He was the president.
Right.
No one had any idea what he had done.
But they certainly knew that they weren't supposed to be taxed on these like Pennsylvania, in the part of the United States.
Well, the government had been in business for almost 4 years.
Right.
And they had been doing this, and no one had complained. The federal tax collectors were being shot at and tarred and feathered and abused.
Yeah.
And so the militia were staunchly defenders of the community. So they thought the community was being overthrown, and so George Washington called upon them to save the nation. So it was a big deal. It was they were patriots. They thought they were patriots because no one really understood the law.
Wow. So no different from today when you have conflict and wars where people will fight, but they don't really get it, that what they're fighting for or who's in charge and what the deal is.
Yeah, looking back at it, at that situation, you can tell today, oh, this is easy. This is really simple to understand. Here's the law.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the limitations on the government.
Mm-hmm.
And so the people that participated in the Whiskey Rebellion were the heroes. They were the real patriots. The government was, of course, abusive.
Yeah.
Overstepping their bounds.
No different from today where, God love them, the people talk about people going into Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya, and they're deemed as heroes when they, in my opinion, have no right to be there. Just a political statement there. It's 20:32 after the hour. So we're going to take a break, but here's the key before. If I understand then, if we just understand this simple idea of the United States of America being separate and who is authority, so when the federal government goes into California and tells them, for example, you can't have these medical marijuana places like you guys wanted to and voted like they're doing today, right? They're telling them to close them down because it's just too messy. They're doing this all under the guise that these medical marijuana places in Los Angeles County are part of the United States of America, because that's the only place they have authority. No,
remember, the United States of America is a confederacy and is also considered where everybody lives. And that the United States of America is not owned by the United States of America, which is the confederacy. Remember, there's a political entity, and then there's the place.
Right.
So to disguise that, what they do is they abbreviate the United States of America as you